Web3.tv.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to GITEX Finale, AI Unplugged with Cambridge AI scientists. You've made it through the panels, pitches, expo chaos, and marathon handshakes. And now, you're exactly where you should be. The real end of GITEX, where conversations finally get interesting. Tonight isn't just another session, it's a smarter one. Yes, we have speakers, but not the kind hiding behind podiums or 40 slide decks. Our guests from Cambridge are here to share insights and headlines. You're about to hear from founders, researchers, innovators who didn't come to tick boxes on an agenda. They came to spark ideas, open doors, and start conversations. This is intelligence without stiffness, presentation with personality, and dialogue that doesn't need a panel to have impact. You're not here to take notes. You're here to take ideas, connections, and opportunities into the night. Let's begin with one of the pioneering companies shaping this ecosystem, Hero.io. Hero.io is a powerful private browser built for the next generation of digital users. It's designed around privacy, performance, and personal AI intelligence. With Hero.io, you can browse, search, and connect without being tracked, combining security and speed with on-device AI that helps you interact and discover smarter. In a world that never logs off, Hero.io puts privacy and control back where they belong, with the user. Next, we have Satoshi.ai, one of the most exciting AI platforms emerging from this new era. Satoshi isn't just ChatGPT for crypto. It's the intelligence layer of the blockchain economy, built to understand on-chain data, DeFi protocols, and market sentiments. Satoshi bridges AI and crypto in a way no one else has. It can analyze tokens, decode smart contracts, track liquidity, and explain complex blockchain events, all through natural conversation. Satoshi turns data overload into clarity, not just assisting users, but becoming the voice and mind of Web3. Now let's talk about APTA AI, the Cambridge born behind tonight's featured speakers. APTA AI builds domain-specific AI co-pilots and expert systems, integrating large language models with structured industry intelligence. Unlike generic AI platforms, APTA creates vertical solutions for critical industries, using data, domain expertise, and proprietary architectures to deliver intelligence that's accurate, explainable, and actionable. From predictive decision engines to automated workflows, APTA bridges research-grade AI with enterprise performance, turning science into scalable intelligence. And of course, our host this evening, Coinvesting Capital. Coinvesting Capital is more than a venture fund. It's ecosystem connecting founders, investors, and frontier tech, shaping the centralized and intelligent future. Through its AI fund, Coinvesting backs companies at the intersection of AI, blockchain, and deep tech. From research-driven platforms like APTA AI to high-impact consumers and data products like Hero.io and Satoshi.ai. Its mission is simple: accelerate the builders defining tomorrow's intelligent economy. And now, the highlight of the night. Our featured speakers bring together deep research, commercial impact, and the future of AI and Web3. First, Dr. Shirom Chabra, CEO of APTA AI, a medic, researcher, and entrepreneur educated at Cambridge. He completed the MD-PhD program with pioneering work in computational biology, ranked in the top 2% of his cohort, and served as senior Whitby Scholar at Downing College. He co-founded MedPredict, an award-winning AI healthcare startup, before joining McKinsey in London, and now leads APTA AI in transforming scientific models into scalable innovation. Joining him is Dr. Vatsal Raina, CTO of APTA AI, ranked in the top 1% of Cambridge information engineering, with PhD from Machine Intelligence Lab. A leading NLP expert, he has published over 10 papers in major ML conferences, worked as an AI research scientist at Meta, and now drives the evolution of enterprise AI applications globally. And completing tonight's lineup is Eddy Abramo, Senior Executive Officer of Coinvesting Capital, a seasoned leader in private banking, venture capital, and digital assets. With over two decades of executive experience across global financial institutions, he now leads Coinvesting AI Fund, focused on bridging institutional capital with frontier innovation in artificial intelligence and Web3. Together, these speakers are not here to theorize. They are here to show how intelligence becomes infrastructure, opportunity, and impact. So settle in. The slide decks are light. The conversation are real. The brightest mind in the room might be the one sitting next to you. Let's kick off this Unplugged finale the right way. Please join me in welcoming the scientists who turn research into reality and theory into what's next. Dr. Shirom Chabra and Dr. Vatsal Raina of APTA AI.
Right, good evening, everyone. Absolute pleasure to be here today. So while the slides come on, I just want to start with a high-level reflection. But before we do so, I'm just going to get a show of hands, please. Who here is interested more on the AI side of things? If you could raise your hands. Okay, a lot of you guys. Perfect. And who here is more interested in the intersection of AI with crypto and its application in crypto? Okay, so I can see a lot of the same hands again and again. So luckily, today we're going to be talking about both halves. So let me first start with a high-level reflection of the scene in AI. So it's pretty clear that we've reached this inflection point in the last few years where the pace of AI adoption has rapidly accelerated. And simultaneously, what we're seeing in crypto is a massive influx of new users. In the last year alone, we've had over $2 trillion added to the crypto market cap and over 150 million new users into crypto. The thing is, crypto is unfortunately not a level playing field. Unfortunately, a very small number of individuals, high net worth individuals, institutions, they have an unfair advantage. They've got access to the research, the analytics, and the information, whereas the everyday Joes are navigating the space pretty much very blindly. So me and Vatsal, we're the co-founders of an AI startup based in Cambridge. We're developing the next frontiers of conversational AI agents. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to apply this to crypto, and we're going to be talking about that today. And specifically, our mission is to democratize access to that research and that alpha to help everyday people navigate the space much more intelligently and a lot more safely. So that's a quick introduction. Let me get through what we're going to be talking about today. So first of all, from an AI standpoint, what we're going to be talking about is how the AI field, especially the AI that we're all used to, has progressed. And we're going to use that as a foundation to share with you some new things that we've seen emerging from the research landscape that we think are going to hit the market soon for those developers or builders or investors in the space. What we'll then be doing is that we're going to be focusing on the crypto lens and the crypto angle and telling you a little bit more about Chatoshi AI that Karen introduced at the start. We'll be focusing on the agents that we have live right now for our users to leverage, and then new tools that are coming out in the immediate future and then in a longer-term horizon. But before we do so, I just want to give you a quick introduction to the team that I'm very lucky to work with, and perhaps why you should listen to us today. So I'm very fortunate to work with Vatsal, who's here with me today, his twin brother, who's equally great, and also Adrian as well. Now, I met these guys many years ago at Cambridge as an undergrad, and since then, we've started several ventures together. So firstly, Vatsal, Eddy, and Vyas, they started at Cambridge 9 years ago as engineers. They all ranked in the top 10 of their cohort, which is an incredible achievement. Just getting into Cambridge itself is a big thing. They then went to do their PhDs in the Machine Intelligence Lab, which is one of the most renowned institutions globally for cutting-edge AI research. And just to give you some context to that, they were working on large language models and generative AI way before many of us heard of ChatGPT, years before. So they've been working in this field for 6 years, in a field that only really came out in 2017 with the advent of the transformer architecture in 2017. So, like they said, they've published over 40 publications with thousands of citations. And they've also developed AI at some of the largest companies in the world. So Vatsal was at Meta, where he worked with Patrick Lewis, who developed RAG. And his twin brother was at AWS working on security for AI systems. And alongside this, we've also worked as a consultancy where we took the insights we had from a research perspective and bridged them to the commercial world. So we worked with two of the largest AI startups at the time, two unicorns, Chai Research, as well as Samba Nova Systems. We also advised for some of the top funds as well in Europe, like Dawn Capital. So that's a little bit about our background. And now I want to focus on the technology. So let's take a look at where Anthropic, with their model Claude, where ChatGPT is and where Gemini is as well, and use that as a landscape to talk about the advancements in the technology. So if we think about large language models, this is the purple box here that we're all aware of. When they first came out, they were trained on vast amounts of data, text data on the internet, right? And what that gave them was a very good ability of language. That meant they were very good at tasks that were like summarization or translation. But they unfortunately struggled when we did tasks that required a little bit more reasoning. Things like, simple maths or counting how many R's there are in the word strawberry. Now, in today's world, since then, in a very short amount of time, these large language models don't operate alone anymore. They work in conjunction with other models, with agents, as we call it. So I'm going to talk you through what this new architecture is. It's called agentic flow, and how this is the basis for many products, including the products that we build as well at APTA. So in agentic flow, let's take this example of a question, what is the weather today? This is a question that requires reasoning, and a question that large language models by themselves did struggle with. So in agentic flow, we use large language models simply as the ears of the system. They have a very good language ability, so we leverage that to understand what the user is trying to say. So what is the weather today? The LLM understands what that means, and it then breaks that down into logical tasks. Okay, if I want to find out the weather today for the user, I need to know what their location is firstly, and then cross-reference that with the weather in that live location. And then that's it. The LLM doesn't do any more. It doesn't do any of the brain work. It doesn't do any of the thinking. It passes those tasks on to individual agents that are designed for that task. They're accurate, they're robust, they don't make mistakes. So the first agent will look at your IP address and find your location. It will say we're in Dubai. And now a second agent, let's call it the live weather agent, has a live database of all weather across the world, and it will cross-reference the weather in Dubai and say, this is the date today, it's sunny, this is the cloud cover, and this is the temperature. Now, this answer here is perfectly valid, right? But it's not intuitive for humans. This is the output of a SQL query. So what we do in the final state of agentic flow is we use large language models as the mouth of the system. So they're the ears at the start and the mouth at the end. And it converts that into natural language, something that makes much more sense. So the weather in Dubai today is sunny with clear skies and a max temperature of 34 degrees. So this is agentic flow in action. And a lot of the world's top models now are using this architecture. But I want to explain to you next why this architecture is great. It's caused some advancements, but it still has limitations in specific niches. So let's talk about what these models look like ChatGPT, in a bit more detail. So these systems, they serve what we call generic off-the-shelf tools. These are things like a web search agent, which enables these models to answer questions from live citations on the internet, so up-to-date stuff. There's a Python code agent, which enables these agents to do maths or logic. We also have a file upload agent. As you know, you can upload your files now and answer questions with them. And finally, you have image analysis and image generation agents. Those are the main agents that we have. But the beauty is they cater to a broad range of use cases, right? We can do a lot of things with these 4 tools. However, the problem is when we start trying to get deep, these tools aren't good enough. So let's take an example of a question here that an equity researcher at a bank might be asking, or an individual investor. what are the attributes of US stocks that have performed the best in August 2024? They're trying to find some insight into where to invest next. Now, it doesn't take a genius to realize that a web search agent, a Python code agent, a file upload agent, an image generation agent is not good enough for this purpose. They're too generalist. And the first reason is to do a task like this, you need a much more advanced model. You need a machine learning model like a decision tree to help answer this question. And because they're so specific and so niche to the use case, these big players simply don't have the time to make these things. They're just too niche. So that's the first problem with this agentic architecture as it's served with ChatGPT, Gemini, and the top models. There's no specialized agents for specific use cases. But then a second problem is, imagine if they did somehow have all these niche agents out there. The second problem is they don't have access to data, right? At most, these models have access to what's freely available on the internet or some very simple APIs. But to do complex tasks like this, you need to have a lot more data. So for this question, you'll need time series information of all US stocks and all the metadata that comes alongside it. So that's the second problem. There's a third, even bigger problem in an amazing world where ChatGPT has made every agent in the world and has access to every data form that exists. And that third problem is these systems are too slow. So whenever you type a question to ChatGPT, that's when it starts the computational process, right? Nothing is done in advance. And for complex questions like this, it will just take too long. It takes hours to answer a question like this and train the appropriate model. So the problem is they're too slow, and it's just not compatible with user experience. A lot of us have tried deep research on these models. It takes 5 to 10 minutes, and most of us leave the tab, but we don't come back to it. So if something like this takes hours, there's just simply no chance that users are going to use it. So that's the third problem with agentic flow. So now I'm going to pass over to Vatsal, who's going to tell us a little bit more about how we push this forward at APTA.
Thanks, Shirom. So at APTA, we try and address these challenges head-on by building what we call domain-specific co-pilots. And what this really entails is 3 things. So in our approach, the first thing we do is we build domain-specific agents. So what that means is because we're operating in a specific domain, we know what users care about, and we can directly cater for those needs by devising agents that directly meet those needs. Second, we power these agents with tailored data streams. Now, in a world of AI right now, data really is a goldmine that differentiates products. So we take the time to collect and curate proprietary and public data sets in that specific domain that enables the agents to be very powerful. And thirdly, we enable complex analytics with very low latency and near instant responses. And this is what we achieve by using something we have coined as preemptive agentic flow. What this really means is because we're operating in a specific domain and we know what people care about, we can pre-compute some intermediate results. And these intermediate results are cached in our system. So when a user asks a question in that specific domain about something complicated, not everything's happening on the fly. It's just based off that cached intermediate result, and the final calculation is done to serve the result to the user in a very small amount of time. So that's all very abstract and what we're going to do. And I'm going to touch upon soon about how we apply this to certain verticals. But before that, I want to touch upon where we believe at APTA some areas that we think AI is going to be going into in the next couple of years. There are many, many different areas that AI can go into, so I'm just going to focus on 4 areas for now. And these 4 areas I've selected is because, to me, these are the ones which are at the cusp of academia. There's been a lot of research done in academia at this point, but it hasn't yet been deployed to industry. So there's a lot of opportunity for enterprises to try and capitalize on such research. So first of these is what I call model steerability. Many of you who might have interacted with LLMs in, let's say, business applications might find it's actually quite hard to control these systems to behave in the way we want. To give like a typical example, if you're working in the education sector and you want to use an LLM to generate questions at a certain difficulty level, it can be very difficult to say, oh, can you generate a multiple choice question at something which is suitable for a 3rd grade student or something which is suitable for a 5th grade student? Right now, the model does it, but in a very hand-wavy way. It doesn't have a calibrated way of actually being able to steer the model in a specific direction. So this is one big area where I feel steerability is going to feature in the next few years. The second of these is adversarial robustness, and a very important one. Now, given the rapid rate of innovation and development of AI models, many people might neglect the importance of adversarial robustness. And the reason it's important, because many of these systems are, at the end of the day, what we call deep learning systems. These are black boxes. They're mathematical functions which map an input to an output. But the reasoning behind how they're going from the input to the output is not necessarily clear. There can be these reasoning models, but they are giving explanations, and it's not truly explaining how the models are operating under the hood. And what this means is that often these models can have what we call mathematical weaknesses. If they encounter data they have not seen before, they may behave in ways we do not expect. And this runs a risk, in reality, for enterprise situations, because adversaries can try and exploit these mathematical weaknesses to make models behave in adversarial ways. To give like a simple example, let's say you have a driverless car, and you have an AI model which is responsible for navigating the car itself. And let's say a simple situation, if it sees a stop sign, the AI vision model knows that the car should perhaps stop when it sees the sign. Now, what an adversary could do is maybe put a small sticker on the stop sign. To a human eye, it looks the same thing. It's still a stop sign. If I saw it and I was driving a car, I would probably still stop. But to an AI system, this might be one of its mathematical holes. Because it hasn't seen that kind of specific data point before, it might make it think, oh, this means go full speed ahead. So that's an example of an adversarial attack. So it becomes very important to have adversarial robustness, where these mathematical holes are what we call patched up, so these models can behave even in adversarial settings in the way we like. And it's particularly important in various different sectors, banking, automobiles, medical, where life can be threatened if they are not safe to use. So once again, it's a big area I feel many businesses will capitalize on. Third one I want to touch upon very briefly is the concept of watermarking. In the education sector, everyone knows there's a big risk now of the copyright, how to say who is responsible for what text has been generated, how to attribute correctly to the correct people, whether something's AI generated or human generated. Now, a big area of research is this concept of watermarking, where the LLMs generating the text themselves, they don't just generate the content itself, they have a choice on what words they use to generate that content. And the distribution of those words across the vocabulary can itself be a signal of which LLM has generated that content. So to a human reading it, it's just the same content. But because of the distribution of the words, it's detectable, for example, this is generated by Claude, or this is generated by Gemini. And this will allow attribution to which LLM might have generated the content, and whether it's AI generated or human generated. So what that really means, the same way images are watermarked, text from LLMs can also be watermarked. Now, finally, I think this is more of a longer horizon, is the concept of new foundation models. Inherently, the foundation models that exist right now, by foundation models we mean like LLMs, large language models, they have been devised to work well in the text space, work well nowadays in the image space. We're starting to get into the video space and audio space. But what they struggle at is being truly connected with, I would say, the science that we have developed for hundreds of years. The equations of physics, equations in chemistry, they're not grounded in these formulae. So this is one opportunity for new kinds of foundation models, which actually connect concepts from science directly in the model itself and leverage from that. This can include hardware as well, which goes into directions like robotics. Okay, so that's where we feel some of the areas where AI is going in the next few years and even for longer horizons. But what's our role in that? So to describe our roles, I touched upon the fact that we build vertical-specific AI. And one of those verticals that we're focusing on is in the crypto space. And to do that, we're building a product specifically called Satoshi. And Satoshi is meant to be this one point of access for all your crypto needs, where you can write a query and get deep insights specifically about anything complex that you might need in the crypto space. But how does Satoshi work? So you might have seen a different variant of this diagram before from Shirom, but for generalist agentic systems, of how they might answer a generic question. And they use what we call generalist agentic systems, like Gemini, Claude, etc. Over here, we have a similar principle, but specifically for the crypto space. So here, we're able to use an crypto agentic system that can answer various different crypto questions. And this has three layers. There's the LLM layer, there's the agentic layer, and the crypto data layer. The LLM layer is responsible for ingesting the user's question. This is over here, the LLM acts as a router and decides which agents underneath the hood are relevant to be able to answer that question. The agents layer are kind of the brain of the system. These are the ones responsible for all the calculations. And there's various different agents that can exist relevant to the crypto domain. This could be like the blockchain explorer, influencer validator, a live market agent, a social media sentiment agent. So lots of various different agents. But for these agents to work, they need access to the data in the crypto data layer. And this data can include both raw data and intermediates stored in that specific layer. So if someone asks a question like, is Pepe up? The LLM decides, okay, for this specific question, which agent do I need to trigger? They decide, okay, I think the live market agent is relevant over here. So I'll route the question to the live market agent. The live market agent runs a specific calculation by accessing, let's say, perhaps a database of live price information in the data layer. The results are then passed back to the LLM, which now acts as a combiner and decides to synthesize the answer back in human language, which the user can read in a very simple way without understanding what actually happened underneath the hood. Now, the example I've given here is very simple, where a single agent has been used. But you can imagine, in more complex questions, multiple agents can be working together and collaborating to be able to solve more complex queries. But we'll see more examples of that in a second. So before we go into that, one thing I want to touch on is what are the agents right now live in Satoshi? And we kind of categorize the agents inside Satoshi into two groups. There's tier 1 agents, which are responsible for information access, and there's tier 2 agents, which are responsible for advanced analysis. So by information access, what we mean is being able to ask queries that basically fetch information. This can be about crypto fundamentals. This can be token price information, social media information. It could be about asking questions about the blockchain, basically fetching information from lots of different sources. The second tier of agents are the advanced analysis agents. These agents can basically connect the dots. They can actually bring you alpha. They can bring you signals from various different sources. This is what I call the more intelligent agents. So what I want to do now is kind of step you through a couple of examples of the tier 1 agents and the tier 2 agents already integrated into Satoshi. The first agent that I find quite interesting is an agent which allows you to find the latest crypto news. So a user can type a simple question like, what is the latest crypto news today? And very quickly, Satoshi is able to give you a digest of all the relevant crypto information from vetted web sources across the world. And beyond actually giving you the digest itself, one thing I find particularly interesting is that you can directly access a Twitter feed inside the chat itself. And what this means is for those of you who are in the crypto space, you know how valuable Twitter is in giving you insights. What's the latest, hottest thing off the press that's happening right now in crypto? What are people feeling about certain tokens? There's all the type of information you might want from Twitter. But in reality, it can be very cumbersome to use Twitter. There's loads of fluff, lots of noise. You have to filter through, keep scrolling to find the relevant information. The advantage of Satoshi is it gives you a filtered, pruned feed from Twitter directly relevant to a query, which the user can scroll to find all the information they need. Now, the next type of query that someone might be interested in is, let's say, recently there was a market crash last week. And I might be interested in seeing which tokens, which obviously a reasonable market cap, have resisted that market crash. So I might ask a question like, give me some coins which have increased by at least 10% in the last week, but have a market cap above 1 billion USD. And very quickly, you can see that Satoshi is able to return a structured response, a table here, of all the tokens that satisfy that complex criteria. So this is an example of a tier 2 agent, or tier 1 agent, which is able to fetch information about these tokens. And anyone can then go ahead and click on any of these tokens to find further information. This includes the market price information, historical graphs, videos related to the token from YouTube that have been published, as well as any latest news about that specific token and sentiment history and how that's correlated with the price. So that's still what I would call and classify as a tier 1 agent. You're accessing information about the token, price, market history. Yes, there's some complex analysis happening, but at the end of the day, you're fetching information. You're not actually getting signals yet. But the user can go further. An example of a tier 2 agent is shown next. So I can ask something like, give technical analysis of Ethereum. Now, in this situation, what Satoshi does is able to give you a dashboard view of all the relevant signals to the user. So here we give the sentiment, growth, mindshare, and quant analysis. And you can expand any of these sections. Over here, when you expand, for example, the quant analysis section, you see the backtesting statistics. You can see all the indicators like RSI, MACD, and whatnot. So this offers what we say is a tier 2 agent analyses to the user. So they can go beyond the actual information there to actually get some meaningful insights. So I've given you some examples of tier 1 and tier 2 agents, specifically for token information. I now want to hand over back to Shirom to show you a few other functionalities of Satoshi.
So in the stocks and traditional equity space, we've seen, especially amongst millennials and younger individuals, we've seen that the ability to build robo-portfolios has led to massive success of apps like Robinhood in the US and Moneybox in the UK. So we've brought the same portfolio agent to crypto now. So you can ask Satoshi to build you a portfolio, and it will give you a range of portfolios using historical data with volatility and returns, and give you different portfolios to different styles. So the first is conservative. You can have a balanced one. You can have a portfolio that gives you higher yield, and a more speculative portfolio as well. And within that, you can have detailed insights on each individual coin by clicking on the coin report and finding out more information. So that's the portfolio agent. But as well as that, we understand that being told what portfolio to buy is just one part of crypto. A lot of people like to use influencers as a source of opinions, as a source of new projects to invest to. So now we help you find out who's who in crypto. So if you're, for example, someone looking to find a new person to follow, or you're a marketer looking for a new KOL to promote your token, you can now ask Satoshi to help you find that individual. And it's got a whole range of influencers in the space, and they're all ranked by different metrics. But we understand that apart from just having an influencer to follow, a lot of us use influencers to actually buy the tokens that they promote, right? But we do it quite blindly. We often trust our influencers and just hope they have our best intentions in mind. And unfortunately, that is not the case in crypto. Some influencers are there to pump and dump and make money from their audience. Well, now we're trying to change that by adding more transparency with Satoshi. So now we track every single tweet that an influencer has made. If they delete the tweet, they can't hide from us. And we backtest it, so you can find out that data straight away. So you can ask questions like, how good is the influencer? It'll tell you how often they're right, how long you should hold for, what their average return is. And you can also rank these influencers as well by their historical performance and find out who the best influencers are that give you the most alpha. So that's the KOL backtesting feature that we're excited to release. And we've also enabled you to follow a different type of alpha that's on the blockchain, and that's by tracking wallets. Now, we all know that navigating the blockchain is incredibly painful. Explorers are hard to use. But now you can ask Satoshi. So here I found a token that's been recently launched on Pump Fun. And I've looked at who the top holders are of the coin. I can then type in their wallet and find out what other tokens they've bought recently and try and copy them. So that's just an example of how you can use Satoshi to navigate the blockchain a lot more simply and easily. And you can do simple things as well, like track transactions, rather than having to do it for yourself online. So those are kind of the features that we have right now live on the platform. And I want to spend some time quickly telling you about what we have coming up very shortly. And the first of those is the notification agent. I have lost opportunities just because I haven't been quick enough to act on market movements. And crypto, unfortunately, is super volatile, right? I've been holding SUI for a few months now, and I missed a 2-hour window to get out of the trade. And now, if you look at the price today, I'm not doing too well. Now, what we're enabling you to do is build custom notifications with Satoshi. Not just simple stuff like tell me when the market price has hit this level, but more complicated things like tell me when the sentiment crosses this level or when this top KOL tweets about the next token so you can get on it straight away and capitalize on that movement. So that's a notification agent. And a new agent that we're also be releasing very shortly is a news timeline. How amazing would it be if you knew what actually moved the price of crypto or a particular token? Now we're using AI to build up that contextual engine. So what the AI does is it looks at news historically, and it looks at how it correlates with the movements of that token in the past. And then the AI builds up a set of reasons for each coin. Did the market move because something happened generally? Did Trump tweet something? Or was it something specific to the coin and project itself? We'll let you know in a few minutes. And over time, the AI builds up a history of what types of events move a coin the most. It could be something like a change in oil prices, which somehow affects a coin, or it could be something like a hack, which is obviously a lot more obvious. And then you can use those trends to get on to new movements very early. So if the same event that causes a coin to move in the past happens again, we'll notify you straight away, and you can capitalize on that correlation, that market movement before it's complete and make some money there. And then the third feature that we'll be releasing is centered around the idea that we're trying to build the most comprehensive data platform there is in crypto. So now that you've made all the money that you've made using Satoshi, you can now find out where to cash out that money across the world. We have the most comprehensive data set of all crypto ATMs. But that's just an example of the approach that we're taking, right? We're trying to build the most detailed data set, so it's not just ATMs, it's blockchain explorers, wallets. So you can use this as a single portal to navigate the crypto and Web3 space. So yeah, those are the features that we have coming out in the future as well. And now Vatsal's going to talk about the longer term horizon.
Yeah. So Shirom and I have so far kind of covered what are the live agents right now at Satoshi and what are agents that are currently in development. But where is Satoshi going next? what's our end game, per se? So there's several different features planned in the roadmap at Satoshi, but given the constraints of time, I'm just going to focus on a few, which I think are personally quite exciting. The first of these is the execution agent. This agent, to me, is a form of true agency. Now, I can type in natural language in Satoshi and be able to execute a trade in the future. I should be able to try something like, oh, can you buy me 2.5 Sol? And it'll go on my behalf, and for my specific wallet to be able to purchase that corresponding token. And you can go beyond that. You can have custom strategies. You can make something very conditional. For example, can you sell my Bitcoin when it hits 130K? So these type of natural language interactions mean you no longer need to go on third-party platforms to be able to make trades. You can just use simple natural language to directly make trades from the platform itself. The second agent we've planned in the vision of Satoshi that I'm quite excited about is the education agent. To give you an example why I think the education agent is very important, I want to give you the example of my mum. Like the millions of users, of newbies plan to come to crypto space in the next 2 years, my mum is someone who had never used crypto before. So I was intrigued. If I gave her Satoshi, what question would she ask as a new incumbent in the crypto space? And this is the question she asked. Which Bitcoin should I buy? So for those in the crypto space, you might realize how nonsensical the question is. And both Satoshi and I were equally perplexed. But what this really highlighted to me, for these millions of new people coming into the crypto space, it's really important to educate them on the journey. They need to learn the terminology. They need to learn how to be baby step, basically all the different important steps, to be able to make a trade safely without being vulnerable to various different scams that arise in the crypto space. So the execution agent and education agent are both in the vision of Satoshi. But what's our end game? To me, the end game is what we call is a multi-agent economy. What I mean by that is all the agents we've discussed so far, even for the vision, everything's been in-house agents that we have built. But I do believe there's lots of other great teams out there who have access to specific data sets, specific technologies, who can also build great crypto agents. So why should we be able to leverage them and then be able to leverage us? So the idea here is that we should be able to define a medium from which other crypto agents can also interact directly with Satoshi. So from Satoshi's perspective, it can choose for a given user's query to use one or many of some of the in-house agents, as well as external agents from other teams. And the beauty of this is we want to be in a situation that the external agents companies who are building these agents should be able to maintain their data on their servers without having been accessible directly from Satoshi. All that happens is that Satoshi is able to interact with those agents through some kind of medium. This is not an idea which is completely novel to us. It was actually proposed by Anthropic at the end of last year. For those of you, many of you might have heard of it through MCP. It was later popularized earlier this year with adoption in ChatGPT from OpenAI. So we're kind of having the same vision here to do this MCP kind of equivalent thing within the crypto space itself. So that's where we are right now. And the way we want to end is try to invite everyone here to try and join our beta access to be able to further interact with Satoshi itself. So as we roll out the newest features, you can help shape and give feedback to improve the product further. And one thing for the developers of you out there, we also do have available a Satoshi SDK. So that means you can directly embed Satoshi into your applications and interact with it programmatically. And this is a great way to actually be able to build on top of Satoshi itself. So do reach out if you're interested in that.
Also, if you have any websites that you want to have Satoshi on, private label as well, you can use the same SDK to deploy it on your own website as well.
So thanks everyone.
Happy to take any questions, or we can hand over to Eddy and take questions outside as well. So if there's any burning questions, let us know. If not, we can hand over to Eddy.
The private label?
So the private label, you just directly reach out to me, or I can give it to my colleague, and you basically have access to our documentation, which tells you, guides you step by step of how to integrate that into your setup. And there could be like more of a private discussion on what the business structure of that would be. Yes,
you mentioned with the rapid growth of AI, and you mentioned a system crash.
Yeah.
How would that affect your company? And currently, with the rapid growth, how are these systems being powered? Because that is it's going to become a huge problem without the capacity, because we know these systems, they require more than the average amount of power or utility. So how are those systems powered?
Sure. I think so your question is around specifically the energy required to be able to power these systems. Yes. I think, fortunately, coming from an academic background, I can see there's a lot of research going into how to make these models equally high quality but smaller. So like everyone say like 2024 was the year of large language models. 2025 is a year of small language models. Achieve the same quality but with smaller models. And by having smaller models, being less reliant on the same amount of energy, and that's a trend I continue to see to happen. Rather than making bigger and bigger models, we're happy with the quality, just make the models the same quality, just achieve the same thing with fewer parameters.
But the industry and growth is continually growing, so making the model smaller, how would that?
So if each individual model itself is smaller, that's being run, that individual model requires less energy to give you the same answer to your query. So right now, when you use ChatGPT 2 years ago, it might have cost, let's say, I could measure in carbon dioxide units or carbon units, how much carbon units that cost to be able to get a query result. Today, that's like orders of magnitude cheaper already because they've become more optimal in how they, let's say, tokenize the text and how the models they use and the number of parameters they're using. So they're achieving the same output, but with less energy. So I think that would help deal with, I guess, the growing demand in this space. And I think the space itself will mature at some point, where it will plateau, to be at the appropriate level like many other technologies do. Yeah, just thanks. Okay, yeah, so Eddy?
So good evening, and thank you, Shirom, and thank you, Vatsal, for this nice presentation. I will introduce you Coinvesting Capital and Coinvesting AI VC Fund, so that we are managing from the DIFC. So can move, please. It's a disclaimer, okay? Move on again. Thank you. So first of all, why we have decided to manage and to launch Co-Investing AI Fund. So I think on this graph, it's quite easy. Artificial intelligence, this is the amount invested from 2014 to 2024 compared to all the other tech sectors, including cloud, manufacturing, etc. So we are talking about almost $2 billion USD invested in AI. Then, why a VC fund? VC means venture capital. So on this graph, you will see that the total amount invested are for medium-sized deal around $3 million USD maximum. So what does it mean? It means that, first of all, these last 10 years, we have a huge amount of funds invested in AI and Web3. Secondly, this amount, I will say around 80%, is invested in startups or small companies. So this is why we have launched this VC AI fund in partnership with our two friends on the team, APTA. So the partnership we have is very simple. As you saw, the AI needs to be studied by PhDs, by technical guys. This is the only way you can differentiate one startup between another one. So we have the chance to work with APTA team based in Cambridge, and they are doing the due diligence on the tech due diligence on the companies and startup, highlighting which one could be interesting for us. Can move. So the fund we are launching, it will be a 100 million fund, so not too big, but it's already a good size for VC investment. The fund structure is called exempt, meaning that it's regulated DFSA with a minimum investment of 50,000 USD, which is quite small. You have the auditor, lawyers, etc., and the objective in terms of return, it will be at least 3x in the coming 7 years, because it's a fund with a maturity in 7 years. In terms of investment committee, we have 3 investment committees. The first one, as I said, it's the tech due diligence, which is the key one. Why a startup it's better than another one, and especially based on the strengths of the tech behind. After the first due diligence, we have the ethical committee. Okay, we are not interested to invest in, of course, some weapon AI, so AI for weapons or brain manipulations or this kind of investment. And the third one, the most important one also, the business committee. It's not because you have a very strong startup with a very strong idea that you can convert these ideas in terms of return for the fund. Sometimes the startups are too niche market, and or the size of the market is not huge. So for us, it's not an interesting investment. So the investment committee, so you have the same guys. When we have top guys, we use always the same team. So I will not comment again, but I can tell you it's for us, it's really a strong edge we have, because in AI you don't have a lot of experts, you don't have a lot of good experts, and we have the chance to work with one of the most prestigious team in Cambridge. Obviously, you have in the committee the business committee also, so with not AI guys but more financial guys, and this is the team. And I think you can move, please. Next slide. So, in the fund we have 3 strategies. The first one, it's to invest in startups based in Cambridge, so kind of accelerator, incubator of the Cambridge AI lab. The secondly, of course, it's to audit startups globally. So we focus on Cambridge because, again, this is one of the most prestigious universities in the world, especially for AI. But obviously, we are working with and we are looking for investment all around the world, coming from other countries also. And thirdly, and this is something very interesting, we invest in our proprietary software. We have an expertise, Coinvesting DNA. It's based on Web3, as you know. We have financial guys in the team. We have access to a lot of expertise, because when we do due diligence, we have access to PhDs in AI. So why we don't launch our own ideas? And I think, as you saw, Satoshi and Hiro, it's part of this studio investment as we said, okay? And it will be also part of our investment strategy. So co-investing capital, I will comment briefly. So co-investing capital, I know that it's not interesting like the AI discussion we had just before, but co-investing capital is regulated in DIFC. So we own a license 3C, so asset management, and we are doing also private banking. So we can open accounts, we can manage, and of course we can invest in our funds, which one of the most important is the AI fund. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And if you have questions, I think outside there is a dinner and drinks. So please, I wish you a nice evening.
Web3